The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Wednesday. So thrilled to be back with you here this morning. So much to be done today. I'm grinning ear to ear because we've got a big show for you. We're going to start out with Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is here with us live to answer your questions. We're going to be doing that in just a few minutes. And in the second hour today, we've got Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be with me here. We've got a whole bunch of things that we're talking about during that hour. We're going to have a very special guest with us. I've got her book here, Swimming with Autism. Tammy Anderson, who is otherwise known as the Swim Chick, is going to be back with us. We had her earlier in the year. She's back today to talk about some of the things that we can be doing during the winter months to help our children to gain the skill of swimming. It's a very important skill. She's also up for a very important award. I'm wearing this bracelet right here that has the address that you can vote for Tammy at www.nascar.com/award. She's up for a really important grant that could make a huge difference for a lot of children on the autism spectrum to get really well thought out, well structured swimming lessons. Very, very important. So Tammy's going to be with us. We have another recipe that we're featuring on the blog today, featuring this wonderful pasta. This is Explore Asian, my new best friend in life. These are pastas, a whole line of pastas that are made from beans, organic beans at that. This particular one that we're featuring today is organic edamame spaghetti, and we've got a wonderful meatball recipe for you that's turkey and spinach, and your kids will never know that it's spinach. So we're going to be sharing that with you a little bit later on in the second hour, but Explore Asian, that recipe, that entire recipe is available on the blog right now, which brings me to the fact that this entire show is meant to be interactive. There are so many things to do and see when you come here. Kelby's going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us here while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, as I said, there's much to be done. You can sign up for our free newsletter. It's up on the whiteboard, up in that left-hand corner. It's a little icon that says sign up for our free email list. When you do, you will get the free newsletter, and you will be entered to win some of the amazing toys that we're going to be featuring during the Festival of Toys, which is starting early this year. November 18th starts the Festival of Toys. We're going to have a featured toy every single hour. We want you guys to have an opportunity to win some of these amazing toys that we're going to be featuring that are great for our kids on the autism spectrum, a great dollar value, and educational as well as being fun. So I hope that you'll sign up for that free newsletter. And as I said, check out the blog so that you can see the new recipe. But on top of that, you can be watching the live show. Just click on the triangle icon on the computer screen and you can be watching either this live show or a recently recorded live show. And on the other side, on the right-hand side of the screen there, you will see that there are a series of white boxes. Put your cursor in the one that says your question and start typing, and in that way you can be interacting with us here in the studio. I hope that you will do that. It's totally free. You don't have to log in. There's no password. Nobody's asking for a credit card. We don't even ask where you are in the world, which is why we do ask that when you write in, if you want us to get the best information for you, the quickest, that you give us some information like, where in the world are you? We like to know what's the biggest major city so that we get an idea of, especially if you're here in the United States, what state you're in, because The different funding sources are vastly different depending on which state you're in. It's one of the realities that we work with at this moment in time with autism. So give us some information, and then we're happy to be having a conversation with you. Which brings me to my next point, that it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Good morning.
So thrilled to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
It's our delight, and I know it's our viewers' delight as well, because you guys write in and thank us all the time for having her here. If you've not watched the show before, Dr. Grand-Pichet is an expert in the field of autism and working in this field for, it's more than 3 decades.
Yes.
It's frightening how long she's been working in the field of autism, and the fact that she still looks as young and vibrant as she does. But in any case, she is a true expert in this field, has treated so many individuals, children, teenagers, and adults on the autism spectrum. She is revered in this field as someone who really knows what's going on. And on top of that, I always like to remind everybody, you're a visionary in this field. You not only know what's happening now, but you have the ability, with all of the expertise that you have and all the experience that you have, to see what's coming down the pike and help to prepare all of us for it.
I hope so. Sometimes it's not always good stuff that's coming down the pipe, but nevertheless, it's wonderful to have the opportunity to help a few parents and professionals who call in as well. But we do want to caution people that I'm not really able to give child-specific advice here.
Yes, we always mention at the start of the show that no one on the show, regardless of their expertise, can give individual-specific advice. It would be a disservice to think that anyone could talk about a specific case with any authority, because you need to spend some time with the person.
Right.
But having said that, when you write in your questions, and if you're as specific as possible, it gives Dr. Grand-Pichet the ability to comment on some things that help you to know which direction that you might need to go into next.
And often I'll try to think of all options. If we don't have all of the detail, I'll make a variety of suggestions depending on what option actually applies to your family.
Okay.
So we'll do our best.
And we've had so many questions, and we've got a bunch of questions that came in on Facebook in particular this morning. So I want to start out with a question, because it's simplistic but huge in its implications. On Facebook, somebody wrote in and said, "Can the autistic brain be changed?"
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question, and it's one of those things that I can answer definitively, not just the autistic brain, but any brain. And part of the reason that we talk about, we prefer to do early intensive intervention is that there's a level of brain plasticity that is in all of us before the age of 7. In fact, brain plasticity continues forever, but it reduces over time. And up to age 7, there's a very large amount of brain plasticity, which means flexibility in the brain, I guess, or the brain's ability to compromise and overcompensate for its deficits. So, that's why children, by the way, generally will learn. A child can learn numerous languages before the age of 7 if they're exposed to it regularly before 7. So, any brain with practice in a certain area or field will develop strengths in the corresponding brain area. So, for instance, if you have someone practice music from a very early age and they do it repeatedly for a long time, you are actually changing brain physiology. You're not just changing the individual's abilities. That portion of the brain begins to change. And the way to think about it, I guess, is if you have a vessel and you tilt it and there's liquid in it and a lot of liquid goes to one end, the end that has the liquid in it will soak up the liquid. And so, with the brain, with activity and blood flow to that region, you're growing a lot more neurons, and the dendrites in your brain cells will actually increase in that region. This is all research that's been published many, many times over. This is known fact. So, and it actually, you can see this in images as well, where when the brain is active, you can see this growth of, this increase in blood flow. You can see the growth of the neurons in that area. And of course, other parts of the brain that are left dormant will not develop. And so that holds true for all of us as well. If we don't practice certain, this is why, for instance, a good example of this obviously is language. We are just incapable of producing certain sounds that we're not exposed to as a young child. So, for instance, in my language, in Farsi, there are certain sounds that I bet even if you try it, you can't pronounce them.
Really?
Yeah.
But if I had been taught them as a child, I would be able to do
every
that.
Iranian will pronounce this letter, which is one letter, which is q. And it's very hard for Americans to pronounce the q sound, which is just a natural part. And there's many languages that are like that. French, of course, has the r and so on. They're all different. And it's really hard for us, even if we try and try and try. And language is just an example of how the brain develops. This, it's true of anyone, everyone. I mean, the way we perceive things. And this is kind of interesting because this is a great question, because I think about this quite a bit. Our kids are... how we just look at our kids and we often just see their weaknesses or the things that are not the same as us, okay? But the ones that, inhibit them. What about the things that are not the same as us but are better, right? And our kids have some stuff going on that's much better than the typical person. For instance, some of our kids have almost a photographic visual memory. Like, they have an incredible visual memory. Typically developing kids would not be teaching themselves how to read at age 2, and our kids do. Some of our kids do, and it's fabulous. Or, you've seen some of the incredible talents our kids have in music and art and so many different things. And so, I don't know if this is true, but I often feel that there are certain parts of their brains that are developed more than the typical person, and then other areas that are less active. I mean, and that's very normal. I mean, it's completely part of typical development as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So definitively,
yes,
the brain,
absolutely.
Anybody's brain can be changed.
Right, and one of some of the early experiments or early studies with this had to do with, they were called enrichment activity or environments, and you would take a young baby, typically developing, and place them in an enriched environment versus a kind of a barren environment where there's not a lot of stimulation around, and there were IQ points differences even with the individual who had the enriched environment. And this is why when you have a baby, you go out and spend all that money and you buy all those checkered things that are black and white and red, and you put crinkle and you put them in front of the baby in the car, and you want your child to have visual mobiles and stimulation, and that's because you're trying to activate the various areas of the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to move on to another question that we had come in on Facebook. When is that card school opening in Arizona? And this comes to us from Carrie Mallory Thompson, who you got to meet when you were in Arizona.
I did.
Who's a friend of the show.
I did. And I think I also just exchanged an email about Carrie last night. But anyway, we are... Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. I am working very, very hard on this right now. We're looking in... We've kind of given up on... Right now, we're putting a hold on trying to go charter. We're going to keep trying to, we'll apply for charter, but that apparently takes about 1.5 years or so to get through. In the meantime, I think I'm coming back, I don't know, in 3 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks again, and I am meeting with the charter school system in Arizona, or the directors of that, so that I can see how complicated it really is. Okay. But regardless, we are trying very hard right now to first kind of recover from the changes that we experienced over the last couple of months. We had a few supervisors who left and therapists, and as a result, we had a really big shortage of staff. So I was emailing back and forth with Ben, who now is the regional director for that area, and he we have something like 16 people finishing training right now, and another 15 or so scheduled for, I think, 2 weeks from now. And we have, I believe, 2 supervisors who are coming to the training that starts on Monday, so who've been with us for a while. So I want to catch up with existing families and get that ball rolling, and then at the same time, I will not let the school thing go, I promise you. So my goal is, God willing, I'm going to try to get it open so that it corresponds with, I heard that there's in Chandler region, which was one of our offices, I heard that there's the school system is set up so that I think every 9 weeks they have 2 weeks off or something like that, and that's how they're year-round, you know? And so I'm trying to correspond the school setting with that so that a lot of our Chandler kids can go there. But, please keep pushing me, Carrie, because that's a good reminder. In fact, I'll write it down for myself today as well.
And I didn't
I'll
give you
get
a
a
pen
follow-up
today.
on it.
Normally I'm very good and I give Dr. Grampiche a pen, and I forgot this morning. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with more of the questions that you guys have written in on Facebook and on the live feature. So stick with us. We've got a lot of questions to get through today.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. This month we're going to be making a placemat prompter. As we work on this activity, you'll notice that these icons will pop up. These tell you important information about what skills we're using to create the craft and how to access these lessons in the Skills program. Skills is the ABA-based online tool that helps parents educate their children that are on the autism spectrum. And if you are a Skills user, this will help you get the most out of this educational experience. Well, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are the template from our Facebook page at facebook.com/autism-live and your dishware. This activity is going to help your child be able to set the table on their own. The way we do that is by using this prompt. This template acts as a placemat for the table. So it has all the prompts as to where all the dishes and utensils need to go on the table. And as your child gets better in remembering where everything goes, you can remove prompts to make it more challenging for them. And lo and behold, as time goes on, they'll be able to do it independently without any prompts. Well, I hope you enjoy this really super quick and helpful activity. Well, until next time guys, craft on! To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parents icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Grampiche, and she's answering your questions in real time. Now, I mentioned that starting on November 18th, we're starting our Festival of Toys, and it's going to run from November 18th to December 18th, a full month of toys. As an autism parent, I know how important it is at this time of year, depending on which holidays you're celebrating, you want to gift to your child, or you want to gift to a child that you care about in your life.
Right.
And you want to make sure that they're toys that are meaningful, that it's money well spent, that there's an educational component, but that the child loves it. So this goes hand in hand with a question that we had come in this morning. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My 4-year-old barely likes to play with toys. He enjoys the play food and music toys, but it's most of the time not really interesting. He's not really interested in playing with toys. He wants to be singing or writing. I would love it if he would just sit and play with some toys throughout the day. Should I really be concerned that he's not really into toys? I buy him so many different toys, but he ignores most of them. I take some out of the closet and lay them on the floor and tell him to pick something to play with, and he gets upset and tells me I don't want to play toys. I get really upset because I see other 4-year-old kids and they are always carrying some toy around and playing with them. My son wants to carry a notebook and pen so he can write credits from movies and pictures and other random stuff. What can I do to make him more interested in toys? Are there really 4-year-olds that are not interested in toys? And thank you so much.
Yeah, there are 4-year-olds who are not interested in toys. And, I was going to start by asking you to examine why it's so important for you that he plays with toys, the toys that you buy him, and then you went ahead and sort of alluded to the fact that it's concerning for you because other children are and he's not. He will do things a little bit differently forever. There's nothing wrong with doing things a little bit differently. Even within toys, some kids, even like let's look at typically developing boys. Some boys will like computer toys, others will like outside locomotor toys, others will like block building and construction, others will like card games, others will like board games. We have preferences, and these preferences produce what is reinforcing for us or is not reinforcing for us. So typically we think with typically developing kids, I'll just give them a toy and it's rewarding enough that they'll go and play with it. And that is the case because it's intrinsically rewarding. Playing with a toy produces its own reinforcer, and so they enjoy it. There's a different aspect to toys, though, that typically developing kids also enjoy, which is sharing and turn-taking and playing with another, engaging with another person. Now, our kids don't really have that desire, or they don't really necessarily enjoy the engagement part with another individual. They prefer much more. Now, in your child's case, very common thing that I see, and it's not a bad thing. It is an indication of his intelligence. This is funny because the previous question we were just talking about this. Mm-hmm. It really has to do with the area of the brain that is more developed. And in your child's case, it's much more intriguing, challenging for him to write things, and their credits, but come on, how many 4-year-olds are writing things? That's right. Kind of a cool, crazy thing that he does. Like, maybe he will turn into a ridiculous storyteller, author, or something like that. Like, it's an amazing thing. So that's not necessarily, and let's start giving some meaning. Let's start giving some direction to what he writes. So he's not just writing credits, which is imitation, right? But start having him, like, give him a picture and tell him to write about the picture. There's a lot of good things you can do with the writing. Let's not take that away from him. Let's direct that, because that is something interesting to him. Let's direct it to something cool. Because let's face it, by the time he's 6, if he's writing stories that are really good and have pictures with them, other kids will be also interested in that and attracted to that. Now, I don't want to take away from the fact that obviously you do want him interacting with other children, and therefore you're going to have to come up with some things that he can do with other children. First, try and see if you can come up with something that's a little bit more in the middle, of interest to him and of interest to other kids. There's a lot of games on computer now that require some knowledge of letters, for instance, which would interest him a little bit more and perhaps would interest his peers who next year will have exposure to letters and numbers and so on. He will be a star because obviously he knows this stuff now. Find some games that involve some of the same features of things. I think Mom mentioned also, or Dad mentioned music, but find things that have some aspect of interest for him as well as will intrigue other kids. Yeah. And then separately work on teaching him to play with other children and their interests as a lesson. So that's your goal. Your goal is, I want my child to play with other children using things that are of interest to them. Okay, so you have to teach him separately how to use those toys, how to play with them, engage in them, and then reward that. Don't think that it's internally reinforcing for him to do that. No, it's a chore. And then afterwards, you're going to want to teach him how to interact with children. And remember, that's a chore too, so you're going to have to reward that too. So anything that you want to increase, you're going to have to reward it because it doesn't have an internal reward built into it. When he gets a little bit older, he will have somewhat of a reward going on in terms of it'll mean something for him that other kids will pay attention to him, praise him, and so on. But he's always going to be the child that wants to do his own thing, and ultimately the social behavior that will develop with him is going to be other kids kind of being in awe of that special skill he has, which is reading, writing, and so on. So that's sort of where you're heading. By no means am I suggesting that you shouldn't have him interact with other kids, you absolutely should. But don't think that it's something that's naturally going to develop. It's one of those things that you're going to have to teach based on a program, a curriculum, and so on. And at the same time, enjoy the fact that he's doing something else that he enjoys. That's pretty cool, and that can be turned into something even more positive.
And there are a bunch of toys, as you're talking about meeting in the middle, there are a bunch of toys that deal with music and deal with writing and deal with letters. And we're going to be featuring a bunch of those. So stay tuned for our Festival of Toys to see
those. Yes, exactly.
And I didn't know until I came to CARD that play wasn't necessarily reinforcing for our kids, that sometimes it's work. And the thing that was said to me that I got it completely, like my son and my husband love to play Angry Birds. They think that it's really fun. To me, it's like a job. I hate it. It's boring to me.
Exactly.
I just don't, it's not fun for me. And I go, you like that? Right. So, there is a certain amount of personal preference, but we can teach our kids to enjoy toys. Not all of them, but enough for it to be exciting.
Exactly.
Okay, I do want to comment that Carrie wrote back, and she says, I will push.
Good.
That her son starts school in August, September of 2015, so that's your deadline.
That's my deadline. I'll be there before that,
She says you have a little bit of time, and she says, thank you so much for continuing to push. So
thank you
for that. Okay, and some people are just joining us now because they were watching an hour earlier because of daylight savings time. We're glad you found us.
Right.
Thrilled about that. Okay, love this next question. I want to say that this one is complete. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, we're so thankful for your show and all the help you do for us. We are skills users, and our child is making good progress. However, she does master lessons fast, and we were able to move across the curricula. I have a question regarding taking data when doing the trials. We watch the A Word, and we see them taking trials of 10 questions.
Oh, I love this question.
Can you clarify if it needs to be 10 questions for each lesson, or what is the criteria that defines the data taken? Any suggestion is appreciated. Lessons we're working on are adverbs, WH questions, conversation skills, asking questions, and thank you so much. We love you. Not nearly as much as we love you.
Absolutely. I tell you, I love you much more. Let me tell you, if I had, more parents like this, the whole world of autism would change. You are the best.
You're getting it done.
Thank you. Yes. So there's many different ways you can take data. You do not want to necessarily go to a 10 trial set unless you're doing complete, pure, discrete trial. And every child is different, so the format of the intervention is going to be very different. Here's what I recommend. First of all, let me just say, and I'm not trying to sell our book, but please buy our book. It is what's the name of it? Evidence-based intervention for children with autism. It's such a long name. The CARD model, and you can get it on Amazon. Just look up my name; it'll come up. I really suggest you get it because there's a whole section on discrete trial. There's a whole section on natural environment training, NET. And then there's a huge chapter on data collection and how you can collect data. The reason this is important is because generally speaking, when a child enters CARD, and depending on their age, I will start with kind of a very complete, not even a discrete trial, but it's a very, very seriously prompted discrete trial format so that the child's always successful. We call it errorless. And we don't allow the child to make errors when they first start. We prompt everything. Then it goes into a discrete trial, and that has its own. Each of those have their own data format. And then you go into natural environment training, NET, and that's mainly when you're in the generalization maintenance phase. On the other hand, some kids are just really rapid learners, and you said yours is, but I don't know if we would, if they would classify as a rapid learner within our system. But anyway, our rapid learners, we don't want to bog them down with discrete trial, and we'll go straight to NET because it's sort of like instruction and generalization all at the same time. So that has a completely different format of data collection. Now, Our staff use iPads. They each have an iPad, and the therapist and the A word at that time that it was recording probably wouldn't have had the iPads, or
Towards
I don't
the
know.
end, towards the very end.
Right, so
they get
we
the
have
iPads.
these iPads, and on the iPad is all the data collection software is on there already. And this is the first, I think, just last month or this month, we just are beginning to make, or it's public now, it's called Logbook, Skills Logbook, and it's available to the public. So it's the software that goes on our iPads. And if you're a skills user, you should call Skills, our skills department, and ask them about it, because I know it's public now. And it's called the Logbook. And essentially it's all the data sheets and everything on an iPad that you can enter all the data in. Right now, what has been released to the public is the discrete trial, and I think by now, because I think the deadline was end of October, so right now or maybe in November sometime, they're releasing the NET as well, the National Environment Training portion, so then you'll have everything. All the behavior management data is also on the iPad. That's a different process, obviously, tracking, things like frequency, rate, amounts, and so on. So that's all on there as well. So that's the best I can do in terms of an answer. But if you want to read about everything I just talked about, there's two sources. One is our book, which I think you would enjoy anyway.
Yeah.
And one is go to IBT, Institute for Behavioral Training. And there's a module in, I think, maybe in the parent section, maybe in the teacher section, I'm not sure, but it's called data collection. And it goes through all the different ways to collect data.
Okay, but not necessarily doing 10 trials.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, some of our cases we even do 3 trial sets, just 3 trials, and some we do probes. Probes are like you'll do a set of data trials, and then you just probe the data on each one. And by the way, on the data collection thing that you have that you can now get, the logbook, which goes on an iPad, it doesn't have a limited set. So you can do 6, 10, 3, whatever you want, because it's a computer, it'll automatically calculate percentages for you.
Love that.
Yeah, that's much better.
Because I think part of the reason why I liked the 10 was it's easier to do percentages.
That's the only reason.
Do 6, I'm like,
the only reason.
You don't know how to do the math on that.
Right, so I was involved with ABA when we actually came up with a 10 trial set, right? This is Lovos, this is when we were doing discrete trial at UCLA, and we used to write these trials out and then correct, incorrect, and really the only way to look at the overall result was a percentage. And we very quickly realized that if everybody does different amounts, then the denominator is always different, and we specifically said, let's just do it in 10 trial sets so we can get accurate percentages.
There we go.
That was the reason.
Now technology is caught up and we don't have to bore our kids to death.
Right, exactly, exactly.
All right, moving on. My daughter lost her first tooth and she cried for quite a while. I tried to assure her it's totally normal, but she didn't seem to understand. She has another loose tooth, so I'm worried this will happen again. We watched some cartoons about losing teeth, but it didn't help too much. Thank you for your help.
So this is a pretty easy one. Like, you need to throw a party when she loses a tooth, and I would start making it a very exciting thing right now, because the tooth is loose, and you'll be like, oh my God, it's gonna fall out soon. And when it falls out, we're gonna have ice cream, and we're gonna do this and this and this. When my kids were having. It is a scary thing for kids if they don't know that if they don't understand that it happens to everyone.
There's no context.
Right, and if they know that there's another tooth coming, the reason it falls out is because there's a better tooth coming.
Yeah.
And you need to kind of explain that as well and maybe draw it for her. But I think the biggest thing is you have the opportunity to make it very exciting. I had bought these really cool kits for my kids. I still have them because I didn't end up using them all, but with it's angel dust, like it's little angel dust and decorations, and there's a letter from the tooth fairy that goes for each tooth. And so, I of course had them put it under their pillow, and then they would in the morning not just find like a dollar bill or something, but they would find the letter and fairy dust, and that would be like very special for them. So they were always like jealous of the other one who was about to lose a tooth.
Yeah.
So you just need to make it an exciting thing. This is what's cool about kids, is that they pretty much follow how we feel about things.
Interesting. Okay, so make it as fun as possible. All right, we're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back with more of your questions, both on our live feature and Facebook, and we're going to check in on Twitter as well. So be writing in. Stick with us.
Hi, this is Lisa Ackerman. Talk of Facts. One of the questions we hear all the time, how do I know if a treatment is working? If my child has a negative response or looks like a negative response? Well, there's two things you should look for. All medical interventions need to have clear evaluation guidelines with your physician. You should talk to your doctor ahead of time. If there's a negative response, should you stop, or does the negative response mean that treatment's working? Let me give you a really solid example. Almost every child living with autism at one point in time will have a yeast overgrowth. And yeast is extremely common in children with gut and gastrointestinal issues. And when you're not pooping on a regular basis, yeast and other bacteria tend to build up in your gut. Once you treat yeast, often you will have a negative response. What's really important for families to understand in those clear evaluation guidelines with your doctor, they should tell you, hey, your kid may be cranky for a few days following the treatments. There are different things you can do to work with your doctor to lessen that cranky period. But the bottom line is, if you don't have clear evaluation guidelines with your physician, you don't know if that treatment is a stop. You have a negative response, stop, which that should be clear with your doctor, versus a negative response of, that means the treatment's working. So my favorite thing when we talk to families that are about to go through yeast treatments with their kid after extensive evaluation in labs is, your kid's gonna be a jerk, but oh my God, it's gonna be great in a few days, followed by beautiful behavior. So now you know. We'll be back with another Talk of Fact real soon. Take care.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet is here with us live in the studio, and she is answering your questions. I want to take a question that came in on our live feature. Hello, my nonverbal 4-year-old is learning sign language and can do more, book, and please. We are teaching him new signs, but he does all the signs he knows first. I think this is called scrolling. How do we respond when he does this? And thank you very much. I love this show.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I don't know. Scrolling might be something they refer to in sign, but in the world of sign language, we refer to it as win, stay, lose, shift. It's the same thing. He's basically going through his...
What is the phrase that you use?
Win, stay, lose, shift. You don't know this?
Win, stay,
okay, so
lose,
that means... As long as you win, you stay on the same response. If you lose, you switch to another. So win, stay, lose, shift.
Okay.
So that means I'm going to do this, and if it's correct, if I win, I'll keep doing this. That means this worked.
Okay.
If it doesn't get what I want, if I lose, then I'll shift to something else, you know? So you shift. So, and that applies to everything, not just sign, right? It's our kids, when you tell them to do this, and they'll do 5 other things because they're not paying attention to the instruction.
They want the reward, and they're going to do everything that they can to get
their whole array of responses. Exactly. So you do not, in behavioral terminology, obviously you would just say no, and you would not give the thing that the child's asking for. So the child's either asking for more book or...
more book and please.
Please. So please is a weird one to teach anyway. At this point, you should be teaching a whole ton of labels. Okay, more is fine, but you need to teach a whole ton of just labels. Like book is one, but you should be teaching him signs for like all of his demands, all the things that he wants, like juice, various foods, things that he's very motivated to actually request.
Okay.
And that's what you should do first. Now, I'm not a big believer in sign. I think sign is harder than picture exchange, and picture exchange is easier to take then into augmentative, but regardless, he seems to be picking up sign. Do not give him, when he goes through the whole array, I would actually block his response, and I would say, no, try again, and then he would try to get the correct one. If he's going through all 3 every time, then you just need to go back to teaching one of them, like book, and not really, like, basically ignore the others when they're occurring incorrectly, and you just practice again what is the sign for, let's say, more, and you just really make that one very, very clean, and then you go on to the next one. This is one of the things that people, I'm glad you brought it up as a parent, because there's a very specific way of teaching things, and this, I think, is what makes us successful. And I want to say this is ABA, but it's not. This is kind of the discrete trial format, and it's not even, if you look at other ABA providers, a lot of them are not even doing the discrete trial format clean, appropriately. And it's a very specific format, and essentially you present one object first, or one stimulus, right? And it doesn't matter if you are pairing it, for instance, you're pairing the object with a sign, but regardless, there's always that one thing that you're focused on first, and then you will bring in distractors, other types of objects, and then you will have a second target, and then you will have a rotation. And this is a 7-step process of teaching, which is useful in pretty much everything. It's just a cleaner way. Otherwise, if we tend to go too fast, kids get confused. Yeah. They get very confused. Yeah. And with a verbal, if you're doing verbal skills, you just want to make sure that you're doing one at a time before you start rotating. And if the child starts to go through this whole, what you call scrolling thing, you would consider it an incorrect response, and you would say no, and you would prompt the correct response.
Okay. Really super duper important. We had a follow-up to the question about the data. They said a follow-up on the question for data taken. It will be key to establish the number of trial per lesson based on how easy it is for the child. But once the number of trials on errorless and or in discrete trial, does it have to always be the same number of trials?
No.
So data can be compared and equal? Or do we say one set of 6 and another set of 4, the data is invalid to determine mastery to move to the next level or natural environment? I'm sorry for asking so much. We are buying the book and getting the app. Never be sorry for asking
Not
too
at
much.
all, and I'm glad you did. No, it doesn't matter. You can rotate numbers. That's your denominator. That's why it's important to have, that's why your comparison is percentage. So it's 2 out of 4 or 3 out of 6. It doesn't matter. They're both 50%. So that's basically the answer. Doesn't matter how many your denominator is, or how many rotations of how many lessons you have. It doesn't matter, or trials you have, because you're just looking at the percentage correct out of the total. And by the way, make sure that you're not counting when you have a prompted trial, right? You don't want to count those as correct.
Okay. And if you don't understand what that means, write back in and we'll clarify some more.
But this mom is very cool. She's going to get this.
Very definitely on it. Dr. Doreen, for a certain reasonably basic language skill in an already very verbal child, such as proper use of adverbs or adjectives to enrich the speech or answering a riddle, etc., how long would you give an ABA program such as this before you start questioning why it's not catching on with the child and suggesting that they look for alternatives? This is a child who is noted by all involved to be a very fast learner, very smart, and so on.
It depends on how frequently the child is doing the activity. Generally speaking, if the child is doing an ABA program that involves, let's say, at least 10 other lessons as well, so therefore they could be doing something that's, 20 hours a week of ABA, and this is one of the lessons during that period of time, I would expect this to go on for, like, adjectives on their own or adverbs within the usage of other sentences. I'd say easily fast kids will go through, the top 30 or so adjectives or the top 30 or so adverbs within maybe 3 months, 4 months. Typically, we're looking at more like 6 months, because it's not just a matter of teaching them what's, let's say, an adjective, any descriptor actually means, but it's a matter of having them differentiate objects and descriptors. So, for instance, I could teach someone big, little, but then it's a matter of making sure that the child understands other concepts in association with that, like give me the big truck versus the little book, or the little truck, or, you know, then I have to merge it with a whole ton of other stuff, like, what is this? And it can be big in contrast to something smaller, but it can be small in contrast to something bigger. I mean, so there's multiple ways that you teach these attributes, we call them. And adverbs are even, like, you know, with adjectives it's a little bit easier because you can use pictures to indicate adjectives, but not with adverbs. You generally have to use actions to indicate the, you know, the difference of the action. And so this type of thing, it would be pretty typical, I would think, for both of these lessons to be in a plan along with other lessons for somewhere around 6 months, maybe more.
Yeah.
I would not worry as long as there's progress within each within the exemplars. So within, like, you know, you've done, like, let's say big and little, and now you're doing short and long, and then you're doing, I don't know, high and low, or whatever it is. If those are exemplars, as long as you're doing each exemplar and the child's moving, then just give it time. If the child's not picking up the first or second exemplar, if they're stuck on the whole concept, then you got to revisit how it's being approached.
Right. Because it's never our kids.
No,
Our kids aren't wrong, but sometimes we have to change something in order to teach them.
In the program, yeah. And to me, it sounds a little bit like mom or dad, whoever wrote in, might be a little frustrated with the program.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's so many factors that influence the program. One is, got a million factors, which actually is not a bad thing to talk about real briefly.
Yeah.
You know, you could have too many lessons in too little time. Yeah. So, for instance, you could have 20 lessons and only 10 hours a week. And if you have that, each lesson is just not going to get enough practice, period. So you're going to kind of progress very, very slowly, if at all. You could have the same lesson being repeated over and over, which will cause a boredom factor. Like the child will just be like, I'm so done with this. Okay, so that's another thing. The balance of lessons is a key thing. In fact, it's one of my #1 wishes on my help desk ticket to skills. I really want them to produce a format of how many lessons based on amount of time the child has. Obviously, there has to be enough reinforcement. Obviously, there has to be balance of the level of challenge. So it can't be too easy, it can't be too hard, essentially. And children learn differently. So it has to be visual for some kids. It can be easily auditory for some kids. Everything they learn has to then be generalized and used in a successful way. Is the child sleeping? You know, if the child's not sleeping, they're gonna block out things that start to get complex. Has anybody tested the child in terms of their working memory? So working memory is one of those things that's kind of interesting, and it impacts our kids a lot. So a lot of our kids, they learn solid things pretty well, but then if you want to change what they've already learned, that's working memory, they fall apart. So for instance, typical development, Shannon, you'll learn table. Okay, you learn the word table. And I think the next thing you learn about table is what you do, like I eat at a table. No, actually, I think typical development, you'll probably learn where there are tables. Like there's a table in the kitchen, there's a table in the dining room, there's a table in my school classroom, or something like that. Then you might then learn what you do with tables. Like I can eat at a table, I can draw on a table, whatever it is, right? And then eventually you learn something like, at some point you'll learn table is furniture. Right. And then much later you'll learn like tables can be made of glass or wood or whatever it is. Right. But it's all just, these are adjectives describing the table. Right. You know what I mean? So this is all stuff about the table. So over the course of time, that concept of that little picture of a table that you had changes. Yeah. It becomes much more complex. It's like everything you learn develops into this whole huge thing. With our kids, the minute you change that initial concept, they sort of start to get lost. It's like, wait, what? This isn't the table I learned anymore. This is what's going on here. Like, so by adding adjectives, you're causing some confusion because they have a working memory problem. And this shows up in their psych testing. Like, we see this in their psych test. The two things that are predominantly delayed are working memory and processing speed. Those two things tend to be delayed with our kids, and that will impact how they learn. So this is really important to pay attention to, because that's what could also be happening. All of these factors have to be, if you have a good program, sometimes your supervisor is too close and may not be able to really look at all these things, and then if you're in our system, you would then ask for the clinical manager to take a look. If that doesn't work, you would ask directly for the clinical director, Evelyn, to take a look. That doesn't happen, I take a look. Like, there's a process where we get more eyes on it so that we can figure out why the child isn't progressing. It's never the child. It's something having to do with how we change things to fit the child's learning style.
And I just want to add to that we don't ever give up. It's like a puzzle that you figure out. For Jem, it was that he couldn't figure out how to count to 100, and it got worked on in so many different ways by so many different people. And there was a day in kindergarten that he had to know how to count to 100 in order to be at grade level. And I was panicking because we tried it in so many different ways with so many different people, and he just wasn't getting it. And the night before, we had a clinic, and everybody sort of took a shot and said, I think it's because this, and it was interesting to watch this group of people come together and go, it's not him, we haven't found the way to show it to him. And finally somebody had the idea and said, I know what's wrong, we haven't taught it this way. And he made some stimuli right there and went, okay, watch this, and showed it to Jem, and 3 seconds later Jem had it. Yeah. And he had it for the rest of his life. Yeah. So don't give up. Don't give up. They'll, keep talking to your team, and you'll figure it out. Your child will learn how to do that. Okay, I want to move on. The haircut mom, our haircut mom, wrote back and said, thank you for helping with the CIFA and reinforcer questions last week. Follow-up question. How do we train our son to keep his logic brain on when he is tempted by his preferences? Our hope is to teach him to deal with manipulative people who want to take advantage of him. Thank you so much for your advice. The details make the difference.
God, I wish if I had figured out an easy way to get our boys to keep their logic brains on when they're tempted by their preferences, I'd be doing that with my son.
Well, and let's just talk about how all levels that we could address with men.
All life.
Yes.
So essentially you're saying, how do I teach him to, on his own, be responsible? That's what you're saying.
To pick something that isn't preferred when something is preferred is there,
exactly,
but it's the right choice.
And I think, like any other task, there has to be a reinforcer involved. Those who I think are more capable, I think, in this, or more, develop in this area more, have taught themselves how to delay reinforcement. So in real life, the people who work really hard, like, so let's say, logic brain success, I guess the president, look at that, right? Let's say this is someone who gets up very early every day, has definitely exercises. I don't know a single president who they don't have a workout for.
They have
do.
To physically work out.
They physically work out, and they have a grueling schedule all day. And, their reinforcer probably is, I'm the president. So it's a very, very abstract and long-term reinforcer. It's not necessarily something you feel daily. It's not like having a cookie after you did something right. It's not like, 10 people coming and praising you and so on. So when you get to the point of abstract and long-term reinforcers, you are very successful. You will be successful because it implies that you've learned to hold on, keep working hard for something that's coming much later. Now, we tend to fail when we require a reinforcer every single trial that we do something. So, I did great, whatever. I did one question, I need a reward for it. I did 2 questions, I need a reward. So those type of people end up either failing or being very attention-seeking. So your question really has to do with teaching someone to expand their reinforcer to a thin schedule. That means this is kind of a short answer to this, but Here it is. When you start with a lot of work for, a very little amount of work for a lot of reinforcer. And that's how you start everything, anything that you're teaching. So right now with your child, you would give him a lot of reinforcer for a little bit of logical brain. And then you gradually increase the demand and you decrease the reinforcer. So you will increase the time that he's doing something logical, or however you're defining that, or responsible, and you will maintain the reinforcer a lot first and then gradually decrease it. Real life is a lot of work for a little bit of reward. And so that's where you kind of want to shoot for, but it's a process. It goes over time. And it really becomes very hard when you have, when you don't learn that, because then you become depressed because you're not getting enough reinforcers in life. You procrastinate because it's just not worth doing all of this. There's millions of things that happen.
Okay, great. I'm going to keep asking questions, Kelby, until you tell me that our other guest has arrived. So next one. I'm a mother of six-year-old autistic child. He's epileptic and attending an unproductive school. I wish to help my boy. I'm paying $3,000 in that school, but he is still not potty trained. Please help. I'm hopeless.
That's so sad. How old is the child?
6.
6, and
seizures,
right.
And not potty trained. And and she feels the school is not productive, and she's paying for it.
Yeah, I don't know that you will. I think you need to find an alternative, and I think your alternatives, I don't know where you live,
right?
But if you were here, I would say, or if you're close to any of our sites, you need a good behaviorist to do an evaluation. The good thing with CARD is that we have a physician, so we do very well-rounded, sort of consider all the things with epilepsy as well. But essentially, you need a one-to-one program, whether it's with, the main one-to-one program you're going to get in the world is ABA, whether it's with us or with someone else, it's all one-to-one. So your child seems to need much more support. Teaching potty training is not all that hard. The later it gets, the harder it gets. So we need to make sure that that gets under control. You just need a good team of behaviorists, I would say, and not a school situation like this. Depending on the state you're in, you have some options with schooling. So perhaps you can write back to us and say what state you're in. If I had your child in my system, I would have them from morning to night, and I'd provide the schooling, and I'd provide the ABA, and I'd just cover them completely, because that's what your child needs.
Yeah. So do us a favor, write back and tell us what state, and an email if you'd like for us to get back to you. All right, we are unfortunately out of time.
I know.
And
thank
that's
you
so sad,
much.
But thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you again next week. We've got something very special planned for all next week.
Oh, good.
And we're going to be talking about that in the next hour. A certain project that you've been working on us with that we're going to be doing intensively next week. But stay tuned for the next hour for us to talk about that. We're going to go to the A word. We have something special to show you, and then we'll be starting Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. But first, here's the A word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
This is day 3 of potty training. Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
Ready?
25 weeks ago, Jack Riley had a huge breakdown when Jessica asked him to sit down, a direction that's usually very easy for him to do. At the time, no one knew he had to go potty. He didn't have the language to tell his parents or Jessica that he needed time.
Jack, what are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping? Oh, okay.
Jump to 4 weeks ago, and you can see he is now able to communicate what he needs when a demand is placed on him, instead of tantruming like he did before when he didn't have language.
Pooping your diapers.
Okay. How do you know when a kid's ready for potty training?
So, a couple of the prerequisites to know when a kiddo is ready is they wake up dry in their pull-up or diaper, and when they do go in their pull-up or diaper, like during the day when they're awake, they let you know that they went number 1 or number 2, depending on what it is.
It's like you have no choice but to pee.
Let's do it. Help.
No, I can't help you pee.
Help.
I can hold your hand. but I can't help you pee.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time. We can come play after. Hurry.
Oh, he wet himself.
Oh. We can reset to half an hour now.
To make sure Jack Riley uses the potty regularly, they have been giving him lots of fluids and salty foods.
There it is. Let's go. All right, let's go. What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack. Big prayer for your pee-pee. Big prayer for pee-pee. Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
Autism Research Group, we study ways to improve the lives of kids with autism. One of those ways is teaching safety skills, such as what to do if they get lost. We hit the streets to find out if anybody knows the correct answer on how to teach a kid what to do if they get lost.
You're teaching a child.
What to do if they get lost.
Yeah, you're trying to make them independent so they have the skills.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, give them a compass. Code name's good idea. Centurion.
We always have this whistle.
Oh, I'd also tell the kid, don't get scared. You're gonna be all right, man. This is just the world. This is planet Earth. You're at home here. As long as you're on planet Earth, you're at home.
As long as you're on planet Earth, you're home. This guy's a genius. With that flawless logic, he just solved our homeless problem. And as for the unique sounding whistle, although very cool, it'll probably only work if you're in close proximity. And a compass?
I have her call me.
Yeah, she don't have a phone. Parents are like, you're too young, you don't need a phone.
Establish some sort of like meeting place.
What if they can't find a meeting place? Because sometimes the kids get nervous when they get lost.
Yeah.
So like a backup plan,
Well,
plan B.
Yeah, I don't know. No, not really.
Let them go and find a new kid.
Yeah, I've got a different one. Yeah.
There's not much you can do.
There is stuff you can do.
That's right, there is stuff you can do. In 2012, myself, along with my colleagues, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox and Dr. Adele Nadowski, published a study in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis on teaching kids what to do when they get lost. The study demonstrated how 3 simple things, rules, role-playing, and praise, were effective in establishing these help-seeking behaviors. The benefit of this method is it doesn't require the child to have a cell phone or to have to locate a meeting place, which might be difficult if they're in a place like Disneyland. So once again, our method included rules, role-playing, and praise. Let's head back outside and learn about some of these rules.
They should yell out loud. Can't find my mom, help me.
Maybe yell out and scream for help. All right, scream really loud. Correct. And if that doesn't work, then
I don't know.
Well, they could seek help from someone.
Find an adult.
Yeah, go to a vendor, and say I'm lost.
Find an adult, like a police officer or a fireman or an employee in the store, and tell them, and maybe they can help you contact your parent.
It really is that simple. You don't need to get your kid a cell phone. You don't need to establish a meeting place that they might not be able to find when they're lost and panicking. And you definitely don't need to give them a compass. All your kid has to do is 3 things. First, yell mom or dad real loud. 2, if that doesn't work, find an employee. And then 3rd, tell the employee they're lost. If they can't locate an employee, then tell them to find a mother with children, because that's probably the safest person to approach. I'm not saying that most men are predators, but most predators are men. That is a fact. I've read it in a fortune cookie. All right, so you've gone over the rules with your kid, and you've quizzed them, and they're able to tell you the correct responses so they understand the rules. But is that enough? How do you know they're going to perform correctly in a real-world setting? You need to get out there and find out if they can actually do it.
So you'd go over the rules and tell them, like, do this, do that, but how would you know if they actually knew what to do? If you wanted to shoot a basketball, and I just told you, oh, when you shoot a basketball, do this, this, and this.
I never practiced.
You never practice. Yeah, so it doesn't matter how many times we go over the rules or how well you can repeat them back to me. It's not going to change until you get on the court and practice.
Maybe do like a, a little skit with them.
Like a role play?
Role play, yeah.
Your child, you're lost in the toy aisle.
Okay.
What do you do? I'm an attendant, walking around.
I'm lost. I don't know where my mom is. And then once you practice, you just like praise them, give them feedback, like, good job, you did it.
Reinforcing it.
Yes, this woman wins the prize for best comment. She pointed out the most important part of learning, reinforcement. Now, in our study, we used praise, but for your kid, you might have to use something else. You might have to buy them a treat, a toy, take them to their favorite restaurant where they can eat unhealthy food and run around and climb through plastic tunnels that have the unmistakable scent of urine, and then play games spending $20 to get a plastic little spider ring that they will eventually lose in a ball pit. The point is, you need to reward your child for correctly demonstrating what you've been teaching them.
Okay, I'm gonna call her. Hello, your child, Ryan Oceans is missing. There you go.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So you tested it out
I'll
in the
try.
store to make sure I knew it. I had the rules,
Yes.
we role played it, and you made sure I knew it, and then like you said, good job, and all that. Now we're good to go.
We're good to go.
All right.
Done?
High five right there.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Give your child the rules, get out there and practice, and reward your child for responding correctly. For more information, please visit us online at autismresearchgroup.org. I'm Ryan Bergstrom. Thanks for watching. Yes, ding, no. Yes, this woman wins the first, yes, this woman, yes, this woman wins the best, yes, this woman wins the first place, yes, this woman, why can't I say woman? Yes, this woman wins, what's the line? Yes!
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. And
well,
so
hello, my fellow queen.
Thrilled to be sitting here with you.
Now,
we made quite a splash
if
last
any
week.
of you did not see our Halloween show, we were Queen Elizabeth I, moi, and my friend here, the current queen, Queen Elizabeth II, and you know, you got so many kudos for that costume.
I did, and which I owe all to you.
No,
Let's
you
be
don't.
honest about
You don't
that. No,
owe
no,
it
I do.
all to me.
Originally, when we talked about doing this, we had it flipped the other way. But
Yes.
I'm a wet blanket, and I was like, I'm overwhelmed. And you said, no. You be the other queen. I'll be the first queen. And then I wasn't going to do a dog, and you were like, no, you have to have a corgi.
A corgi,
And I went, a corgi. I have to have a corgi.
corgi.
And then when I was sort of, halfway doing it, you called me and said, now look, I'm bringing it. And last year you felt bad because the year before you had been Lucy, and I came and you said, Shannon, you felt bad because you didn't bring it. I'm telling you, I'm bringing it. You better bring it.
You did bring it. You were up all
I took
night.
you at your word, and I said, I'm bringing it.
And you brought it.
I said that Alspaugh-Jackson. Keeping up with that Alspaugh-Jackson is hard.
The consensus was you were fierce, you were out there, you were awesome.
Well, only because you kicked me.
And but next year, whatever we decide, and you and I, we start this early, folks.
Yeah, we've already started talking.
We've already started talking about what
but
fabulous
I'm afraid
duo
for what you're going to bring next year.
Well, we're going to have to find something fabulous. I'm kind of thinking we should do it. Maybe go and drag and be men, some famous men, but I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. But I know whatever it will be next year, I need to hide under a desk because you're going to bring it hard.
I'm going to bring it hard.
She will.
The hard. Now, we are a duo, so I consider the general, if you're a success, I'm a success.
Well, and
so I'm
I
not,
also think that too.
but I just have to say, the sash and your husband helped so much.
He
So
made the
Jen,
crown.
He made the crown, which was stunning.
It was
and
fun.
did he help you with the dog, make that dog into a corgi?
No, I did the dog all on my own.
You were awesome with the dog.
I did the dog all on my own with your direction.
Okay. All right. Let's move on then.
So,
okay.
lots to cover today.
Okay. In the news.
Yes.
Okay. More evidence linking autism to air pollution. What a shock. New research adds to the growing body of evidence linking traffic-related air pollution to the development of autism. This was done at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and they said particularly during the third trimester of pregnancy. And the evidence is suggesting that some component content of vehicle emissions may be associated with autism spectrum disorders. This was published online in Epidemiology on October 20th. If you want to read more. So. You know, we're seeing more and more of this. Now, my son was adopted, but our house at the time, and for the last 12 years, very close to a freeway. Yeah. So not necessarily during pregnancy, but certainly in early infancy. What do you think about this?
When I was in my third trimester, we were living very close to a freeway. Okay. So, you know, I think it's really interesting. And one of the things that one of the quotes, there is now a wealth of studies showing that systemic inflammation in the body may be responsible for early brain damage that results in autism. We also know that exposure to air pollution can cause this body-wide inflammatory response. This could very well change the way the brain is developing. Very shocking just for somebody to say there's a wealth of studies.
A wealth.
And that came from Dr. Kalkbrenner. And that was in Medscape Medical News that she said that.
So let's move on to that second study, which is also along kind of the same lines in terms of risks. And this one is C-sections may raise autism risk. Delivery by cesarean section is associated with increased risk of autism in childhood. According to a study by Irish researchers, children born by cesarean section have a 23% greater risk of developing ASD. This will be published shortly in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry. Eileen Curran of University College Cork took a look at this, and also between ADD and ADHD, findings were unclear there, but it says it you know, is showing this link. And I did a little check here with you. I went, okay, air pollution, yeah, as far as my son. Air pollution, yes, after he was born. I have read of studies linking Pitocin, which induces labor, to autism.
Which I had not heard.
Okay, and that often will preclude a cesarean.
Yeah.
To induce labor, labor cannot happen, then they'll do a C-section. So Wyatt had Pitocin, he had C-section, he had no prenatal care, so lack of folic acid and vitamins during pregnancy because his birth mother found out late that she was pregnant, was also in denial for a while, and she also worked in a commercial house cleaning as a commercial house cleaner during pregnancy. So he's got a lot of the big checks there.
But I do want to say about this study that they're not 100% sure which aspect of a cesarean might be the thing that triggers it, that they state that most C-sections happen in the 37th to 39th week.
Right.
And that it might be that there's important development that happens in those important weeks towards the last, and that could be why. They're also saying that there are many reasons why people have C-sections, and those factors could be what's contributing, not the C-section itself.
Okay.
Like Jem had a very big head. That was why I had to have a C-section.
Okay.
And so they're saying they don't know what it is about the C-section, but they're seeing that there is a correlation between the numbers. So we'll keep posted on that.
You know, we always talk, you and I talk about this perfect storm of factors that may come into play. And then what happens is it's like a bucket. And, you know, some children, it never reaches overflow. But with our kids, it's these factors that all go in, combined with genetic, and then there's an overflow effect, which is autism. Absolutely. So just more, and I just wonder, are they ever going to be able to test all the variations? It seems like there could be some sort of computer model with all the computer models that there are. They could put into, they could put in air pollution, C-section, toxins, a lack of folic acid, and they could come up with maybe some sort of prototype that says a combination of all these things will result in autism.
Yeah.
That we know we could then avoid.
Well, two of the things that we have for in the news later on, if we get to them, that there's been a huge jump in being able to identify what the genes are that are leaving our kids prone to autism.
Right.
And they're finding that those genes are genes that are not hereditary, that there's something that's happening to them. But the huge jump that we've had, we went from 9 to, I believe, 33 genes in the last 3 months identified having something to do with autism. And we'll talk talk more about this later on in the program. But the reason why they were able to do that is because of one research project which has gotten a group of parents to donate cells so that they can study them, and that's why that happened. So when we think what's going to happen that's going to change this, sometimes it's us are participating in research. So we'll talk more about
I'm a guinea pig. I'll be a guinea pig. Take my blood, take my tissue, take whatever you want.
Exactly, and it's easy to give to this particular. But we have a very sad and disturbing story that we to end our in the news on. I know those of you who have heard about this already. We're going to cover this briefly. A mom blogger who had a 6-year-old on the spectrum, and her husband, who was the quote-unquote breadwinner, was recently diagnosed with MS. She did not know what she was going to do. She had a fundraiser online asking for somebody to please help her, and apparently there were more issues because she said that she was hearing voices. On Monday, she decided, because of the voices in her head, to take her son to a bridge in Oregon, and she tossed her son, her 6-year-old, off the bridge to his death. She is now 34 years old. She is in police custody. Devastating, absolutely devastating to think about. And I only want to cover this in terms of saying to people, if you are in trouble, if you are in a space where you are hearing voices that are telling you to do things that you know are not right, I know that this woman reached out in one way for help. You have to find other ways to reach out. And I will tell you, you can write here. Write here and tell us if you're in trouble. Let us know where you are. As one friend on Facebook so eloquently put it, you know, I don't care what the circumstances are. I'm not going to judge you, but don't take your child's life. Reach out. I'll be happy to take your child for a period of time while you sort it out. So reach out, and if you have no place else to reach out here. You know that Nancy has made a career in the last how many years of helping other families.
And can very much relate to having a spouse that's ill, as well as a child with autism, as my husband struggled with cancer for 20 years and is currently in a very difficult chemotherapy round, and
it's overwhelming.
Has lost a kidney, and this one gets a lot of calls from me. The other night I was literally in the fetal position in my bathroom, and you called, and I couldn't even get to the phone. I was so distraught that night. But the next morning I called you, and you talked me off the ledge, so to speak. And you know, I called our minister today. I said, we need your help. You know, things can get overwhelming. I'm calling my brother-in-law today to ask him to fly out. This is not easy.
It isn't easy.
Autism goes on, and other things happen in your life, and the autism doesn't stop. But there's no reason to think you're alone, because people do care, and you've got to be vulnerable. You know, I think sometimes the supermom syndrome keeps us all, you know, Shannon says I look perfect, and you know, I went in this morning to get my blow dry and had my friend throw on the false eyelashes, but just because I was a wreck inside. And sometimes you just have to fake it through the day, but that doesn't mean that we don't all have our challenges. And it's just sometimes seems relentless, like the waves keep crashing and you go down, but you just got to let people know that you're in trouble.
Yeah, you do. And you have to know that nobody judges that.
No.
We can all relate to it on some level, but we have to stop things. You know, for this mom to have done this, it's devastating. It's not okay.
No.
It's not okay. And it's okay to say I'm overwhelmed. It's okay to say I don't know what's going to happen. It's okay to reach out. You have to give people time. I know she tried that and it wasn't working for however long. But I'm telling you guys, if you need help, you have to say it. You got to say it loudly. You can write to us here. You've got my email, s.penrod@autism-live, okay? But nobody needs to be throwing their child off of a bridge. This is a wonderful little soul that isn't with us anymore. So we all hold hands and we forge on, okay? And we hold hands with you and know that you're going through something tough, right? But we're all here for you. I'm here and our viewers are here for you.
I know that.
And we get through this all together.
I know that.
And I know you do. And I appreciate that you allow yourself to tell them that it's not all
I just want
perfect.
everybody to know it's not perfect,
No.
you know. I put the good face on, but inside there's a lot of, in the real world, there are a lot of things that are not perfect at all.
Oh my
gosh. That's when you realize, and you've told me many times, Nancy, you got to reach out.
Yeah.
And for me, I tend to reach out to people at my church. People have to have some sort of home where they feel comfortable, where they know people will be there for them no matter what. And like you said, call us if you're at that point. Nancy at act-today.org. You can reach Shannon and I here. We'll just like we did when Rosario was lost, and we got it all out in the media, and as coincidentally. His mom, Fiorella, found him that very day that we were mobilizing. But we have the ability to mobilize people that are humanitarians, that care.
Yeah. So we get through this together.
Okay. Yeah.
But we have such a wonderful, to switch gears, because I want you to know about hope. Hope is so important. And we have Tammy Anderson back with us.
Yes.
Co-author of this wonderful book, Swimming with Autism.
And
so
I've read
important.
the book, and it's so fantastic.
It is fantastic. And she's here for a very specific reason. She's up for an award that could make a difference, really make a difference for a lot of kids. So she's going to be with us to talk about what this award is and how you can vote for her. And this is something that we can do to give hope. So stick with us.
Swim Chick coming up.
My name is Rachel. My son is Kyle. He has autism.
I am Kyle. I am 9 years old.
He's been with CARD since he was 2 years old, so that's about 7 years. We've been really fortunate that we've seen so much change in Kyle that you would really not even realize he has autism.
The front of the book has an artwork piece.
Is that me?
No, that's a self-portrait, that's why.
I thought so. Look, you're wearing the same kind of color shirt. He had been going along with pretty main milestones. He had walked on time, he had sat on time, he was looking at me at different things and laughed, and he had about 5 words, and then all of a sudden he lost the words. And I would call his name and he wouldn't look at me anymore. He all of a sudden went into his own world. I mean, I just noticed like he slipped away from us. I got into UCLA because somebody called in sick one day, and we were on her waiting list, but she said, "Oh, I had a cancellation, can you bring your son in today?" I took my son in with my mom, and we had a 2.5-hour appointment where they observed his behavior, noticed they didn't have any words. He was climbing all over things and jumping off her furniture because he had no sense of fear. He couldn't actually feel very much. The doctor told me, ask for CARD, you can call them. I called them and got on their waiting list, and then I started researching what ABA was. ABA with CARD was the only scientific-based research that had shown that children could improve, or now they even say recover. And my son, I think, having all this therapy early, he's going to graduate from CARD. He's going to be able to be part of the community as a typical kid. How does it make you feel when you play the violin?
It makes me a little bit calmer.
Kyle, early on, he only liked baby food, and even at age 4, he was eating baby food, and he liked lots of flavors, but he didn't like anything with the texture. So he wanted everything pureed. So if you can imagine, as a mom, I'm up, cooking carrots and then pureeing them when he couldn't just have a carrot. It was really time consuming, and I could get the protein and everything into him, but he wasn't eating like a typical child. It was 1 year later, he, instead of eating blended bananas, he was now, peeling the banana and biting into the banana. Taking a hot dog on a gluten-free bun and biting into it, I mean, that is just amazing. So that was one of the main things I came home thinking, wow, this is great. It really was a relief for me because I was doing a lot of blending. I think I went through 3 blenders and That's just not every mom that wants to have a regular meal and be able to have the same food with their son. So it really helped. Right now, he's on the road to recovery, we call it, and I really do think that Kyle, in a year or two, will not even need assistance with therapists. He really is in a typical class, and he's at the highest level. He's in an advanced level. He's in a GATE class. I don't even think anyone knows in his class he has autism because he's just there.
This is a mobile. I got a very good grade on it. I got 4 because my teacher said that she learned a lot about Neil Armstrong. This is a drawing of Neil's first footprint on the moon. And
is his footprint still there?
Yeah, it is, and his boots.
And his boots.
He left his boots on the moon.
He did. Everyone thinks he's very kind and he gives hugs to everyone, so the social interaction is there. He's very intelligent. He's highest in his class, and he makes friends, and he loves to read, and he's just a part of groups when he meets people.
My first trip to SeaWorld, I wrote it, but I wanted to make sure that you noticed that the sun is moving higher.
What does that signify?
That signifies that time is going. This is artwork in a frame. That took me a lot of work to do. I have some instruments over here. Something inspired me to make instruments. This was from last year for a fundraiser. This is the surfing pictures.
So here you're going on the surfboard, and did you stand up right away?
Yeah, I did.
You did. And show us how your stance on the surfboard. Ready? Go. And what's your favorite part about surfing?
The very first time I loved the wipeout. And I hope that you enjoyed me, Mom, and all of my interests in learning a little bit about me. The end.
Got this one? Don't worry. We're back with one of our favorite chicks, the swim chick.
Yes, we're so
okay,
excited
Tammy
that you're
Anderson.
back with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be coming back up here.
Yeah.
Well, and it was a thrill to be able to see you at Denim and Diamonds.
Yeah.
You were at Denim and Diamonds, and we so enjoyed that.
That was such a fun event, and I'm definitely going to go next year.
Okay, well, you and your posse of girls looked so great.
Yeah, we had so much fun. It was a great event, and for anybody that wants to go, we had a really good time.
Good, good.
A tremendous event. But you're here. You are the co-author of this fabulous book that we love, Swimming with Autism. And we had you on the show in May, I believe it was, when it was Water Safety Awareness.
Correct.
Talking about that. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, about water safety awareness. But you're up for an award right now.
Right.
Tell us about this award and how we can vote for you.
Okay, so it's very exciting. I have been nominated for the Betty Jane France Humanitarian Award, and it's through the NASCAR Foundation. And for those of you that aren't 100% familiar, but the France family actually are the family that started NASCAR racing.
Oh, neat.
So Betty Jane France is the matriarch of the family.
Where are they out of, North Carolina? Or
actually in Daytona.
Oh, in Daytona,
Yeah,
okay.
in
NASCAR.
the Florida area.
Okay.
Well, NASCAR is packaged. Well, anyways. But with her philanthropic efforts that she had done for years and years and years, so they came up with an award to have finalists from across the country and to get money for their chosen charities. So there is 4 finalists. I'm the only one on the West Coast, and I'm the only one representing an autism cause. And so there was, I believe, hundreds of applications, and they went through them, so then they picked the 4. And then, so what happens now is between now and December 4th, whoever receives the most online votes will get $100,000 for their chosen charity.
Okay, this is huge.
This is huge because through my chosen charity would be the Autism Society in San Diego, which over the last 13 years we've developed all kinds of aquatic programs to help kids with autism.
Yes,
and we're all volunteer.
Right.
So it's we work really hard to do fundraisers to help the families, and this would just be epic for us to have a good chunk of money. It would almost be like a legacy, to at least for years to come, to be able to sustain some of the programs that we've developed.
Sure.
So it's just really important and really imperative that if everybody could just go and vote.
We're wearing our bracelets.
Yeah,
We're wearing our
so
bracelets.
So it's www.nascar.com/award. Look for me, Tammy Anderson Lee. Click on the little thing, and there's a video you can watch, but you could just vote every day once you've watched the video. And part of the money that if we were to win $100,000 would be that me and Shirley Fett and Kathy Ball, we have collaborated, and we've been doing Swimming with Autism conferences and trainings. So Kathy Ball and I just returned from Texas this weekend. We did a training to swim instructors from Louisiana, from Georgia, from Texas. And so part of that money, if we were to win, would help us be able to travel the country in certain areas and give these trainings at a much, in the communities that really need it. So.
Well, can I just point out, and I saw it on the back of the book, I don't think we can say it enough, drowning is the leading cause of death for children and adults with autism. Drowning is the leading cause of death for children and adults with autism. What better way to take action and become an activist than to vote for Tammy and support these programs that literally, when people say autism is a case of life or death, it most certainly is.
Yeah.
And this is a way that we can combat this by children who wander and elope and end up at the bottom of a pond, a lake, a river, or a swimming pool within seconds.
Right.
Right?
Right, exactly. And that's been my wish and my driving force all along, is just to help reduce the drowning rate for kids with autism. And the more that we can all do, and especially spreading the message across the country of what we have been able to do in San Diego and the success that we have had and the types of programs that we have. I mean, literally, we went through the school of hard knocks figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So at least we have a methodology now that we know that works that we'd like to share.
And come back
we
to
are
talk
going to
about
take a break, but I want to remind you again that
to
you
vote,
all
and we'll come
have
back and talk about your program.
www.nascar.com/award. You need to go in and vote for Tammy, and you can do that every day between now and December 4th.
Correct.
We've said before, Tammy, we'd like to clone you, and this helps us to be able to do that, because then she can go and train other people.
Right.
This is important. We need all of you on deck, all hands on deck, right?
Yes.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to be back to talk about this book and what Tammy does. Stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable. That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, our very special guest, Tammy Anderson, or Tammy Anderson Lee, as you are also known in
And the swim
circles.
chick.
And also known as, AKA the swim chick. And believe me, we all want to have her in our corner because we were talking before about how drowning is the leading cause of death for individuals who are on the autism spectrum, both children and adults.
Correct.
So she's got this fabulous book, Swimming with Autism. How can they get this book?
Within the next few days, because it's hot off the presses. This is the second edition. We revised it, so we actually added a few other things because we use waterproof iPads, things like that in the pool. So we actually added that into the new edition. So within the next few days, you can go to swimmingwithautism.com, and it'll be right there for you to purchase. And it's a great tool that if there's swimming instructors in your community, that you can at least give it to them, and then at least they'll have a little bit of basic knowledge of what we've been doing and how to help your kiddos with autism.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of people can't get to San Diego. You know, I was very interested in your program, so we could have a swimming instructor that can read this and then incorporate it in working with our kids.
Right. And then there's a lot of just basic skills that parents aren't even, you know, aware of that they can actually do at home in the bathtub, that type of thing. So even just simply like even in the off season right now, a lot of pools are closed, but there's a lot of indoor swimming pools and a lot of indoor swimming schools.
Correct.
And also if you go to our swimmingwithautism.com website, there's a list of swimming programs across the country that we have actually trained.
Oh.
And so there's a whole list there from, I mean, even we've trained instructors from Brazil, Singapore, things like that. But that is a great list that you know that they have a little know-how on working with kids with autism because they've participated in one of our trainings.
Great.
So that's a good resource. But there are indoor pools, so you can potentially swim year-round if there's one in your neighborhood. And for parents, there's just some practice skills like just getting your child's head wet, the sensory issues and the desensitization of getting their head wet, things like that. You can practice year-round at home. So.
This is important stuff. We know that this is a question of life and death. And for anybody who's out there and saying, well, I'm working on this, I'm working on that, I just don't have time for swimming, I really want to make the case that you need to make time. This needs to be part of your program for very many reasons, including the fact that your child needs some physical workout as well. But you need to do this for a safety issue. They will also enjoy it. Our kids predominantly love the water.
They do.
If there are some that are afraid.
Why do they love the water?
This is the reason why they love, because the water surrounds the body and it has the hydrostatic pressure. It creates, you know, like a calming effect.
Okay.
So the water is it's a magical place for kids with autism. And some of the kids, once you get them in the water, you have a hard
can't get them
time
out.
getting them
I
out.
testify to that.
Yeah. So it's great for the sensory issues. It helps calm them. It helps relax them. It helps them to find sense of where their body is and spatial awareness and things like that. So just the water itself is a great place to be.
It's like a socially acceptable cow squisher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway, swimming, it's a good thing all the way around, but make sure that your child is doing it safely. You can do that because this is your manual to do that. What's the website again for them?
It's swimmingwithautism.com.
Okay, and don't forget that you can vote for Tammy right
Vote
now.
for Tammy.
To win this amazing award.
NASCAR.com/award.
Well, vote for her right now.
Between now
Go
and
to
December 4th, vote every day, once a day.
Yeah.
And get everybody you know to do it.
Yes.
Please do that. It can make a difference for so many kids, maybe yours. Thank you for being with us.
Well,
Thank you,
thank you
Tammy.
again for having me.
Okay.
It's been great.
All right, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and talk about...
You're going to feed me.
I'm
right?
going to feed you at some point. But I don't know if that's what we're going to do next. We're coming back to talk about the Autism Act of Love. We've been kind of cheating about it and telling, but we are going to announce it. For those of you, you're getting the insider's view.
Okay.
And then I'm going to feed you.
Okay, great.
All
Good,
right.
I'm hungry.
So stick with us.
Okay.
Riley has high-functioning autism, and I'd say I noticed somewhere between 9 months and a year. Looking back now, I can tell you everything. I mean, there was no pointing, there was no shared experiences, speech was not coming, the interactive play was not coming, those things weren't happening. You know, you go to the pediatrician, they tell you, well, Sometimes boys are slow or things might take a while to come along, but it still wasn't happening. And right when he hit the 2-year-old room in preschool is when the wheels fell off the wagon. That's when we got some intervention. That's when we figured out, how are we going to address this problem. The first thing I did was I got a mentor, because there's no book on what to do with your autistic child. I mean, there's many books, but each path is individual. So I got a mentor, a really nice woman named Marlene. She has a daughter with Asperger's, and she told me, go to a psychiatrist so you can have your child fully diagnosed and a rock-solid diagnosis that can't really be attacked. Call CARD and do whatever they tell you to do. That was probably the thing she talked about the most. Get in touch with CARD. She actually put me in touch with Evelyn from CARD, and calling CARD was like amazing, because I really felt like things were finally going to be okay. We were going to get the help we needed.
We tried a number of different things before we could get into CARD, and you could really see the difference in the data keeping, really addressing what his issues were, whereas the other places we had been, it seemed pointless to me.
We've talked about this, and I feel like we met a lot of really nice, well-intentioned people.
Right.
And then when we got to CARD, we met a lot of really nice people who could help us because they had the experience. It was ABA, which I think is the only way to go with your child if you're trying to overcome autism. And if you go to CARD, the people are so qualified, and there's so much of a database on how to approach this. It's just like they come right in, and we started off with, let's have Riley sit down for 2 seconds, because he couldn't even get that. And we worked on baby steps until now he's in 1st grade and he's working at grade level. So it just starts with baby steps, and it keeps working on, because they have a way to approach every single problem, every single tantrum, every single thing you're going to come up with. They have a way to approach it and help you get through it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed, like at our clinic, we'll be having a specific problem, and how good they are, all of them, the therapist and your team leader, at coming up with a solution, something to try, and it almost always works. Whatever the particular behavior you're trying to deal with, they're really good at them. They know the answers.
He likes a lot of stuff I think regular 7-year-olds like. He likes to swim.
He loves to swim.
He's a fish. Likes to ride a scooter, loves Toy Story, loves playing on the iPad. Loves
Justin Bieber.
Thought you'd always be mine.
Good job, buddy.
High five.
High five.
High five.
Yeah.
CARD's been good about encouraging us to do things that maybe wouldn't occur to us, like him learning to ride a bike was really them saying, hey, it's time, let's do this, and helping us do that. And so he can ride a bike. He's still working on the brakes a little bit, but he can pedal a bike. We can go to Balboa Park and he'll ride happy as a clam along the bike path.
If you think something's wrong, it's not about you. Don't bury your head in the sand. Go get help, because the help is out there to make your life and your child's life just so much better. And if you're lucky enough to get in with CARD, I can't even tell you what a difference it's made in our lives from 4 years ago. Just the quality of life we have, the quality of life Riley has, the progress he's made from being a child who wanted to stay in his room and play Toy Story and line up his Toy Story dolls all day, to a 1st grader who's working at grade level. It couldn't have happened without CARD intervention, without ABA, and without all the wonderful people we met there.
Welcome back.
We are going to unveil now the sort of secret thing that we've been talking about behind the scenes forever and clue you guys in, because we want you guys to be the first to know, but we're not really unveiling this and launching it until Monday. It's called the Autism Act of Love. We all appreciated, you and I took the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, and we saw what happened with that, and it was tremendous in terms of raising money, but it was also tremendous in terms of raising awareness and it was something that we could all rally around. And ever since that happened, everybody's been writing to us saying, why aren't we doing something about autism? So Nancy and I and both of our teams put our heads together, and we came up with this thing called the Autism Act of Love Challenge.
Yes.
And there's no ice, there's no water,
so
we're not
easy.
wasting any water,
right?
But it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's a 3-marker challenge. So I mentioned last week what you need to have are 3 markers of different colors. You need to have a piece of paper, and then you're either going to blindfold yourself or you're going to close your eyes or cover your eyes.
Correct.
But there's no peeking. You're on the honor system.
Right.
And basically, what you need to do is record yourself and your family and everybody that you can get doing an autism act of love. You're going to draw something blindfolded using all 3 markers, blindfolded, to draw something that you love, and you're going to do it in honor of someone. So, for instance, I drew, and it doesn't have to be the thing you love most, right? It could be anything that
Something you love.
So I drew Bono, because I love Bono from U2, and I did it in honor of my son, to honor him.
Okay.
And so I drew Bono for him, and then you challenge at least 3 people.
Now, we did one as the Queens.
We did one as the
week
Queens.
that is good. That people will see.
Yeah, that will air
and
next week.
And as Queen Elizabeth I, I drew the world because she took over the world, as you know. She conquered vast armies. And you drew.
I drew Prince George, the grandson, because I'm sure that she loves him.
Right.
So
now, if I were to draw something, I'm going to have to do one as me. I wonder how I could draw Bruce Springsteen.
You can absolutely draw Bruce. I drew Bono.
Okay.
So that's really all that it is. And of course, we want you to be posting these starting on Monday. Monday, November 10th, we want you to be posting them and tweeting about it. The hashtag for this is hashtag Autism Act of Love. And of course, there is a donation part of it where we're asking for people to donate by going to helpforautism.org. And when you do, it connects you directly with the donation page to Autism Care and Treatment. So if you donate through helpforautism.org, you'll be giving money, and it could be $1.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do the $10 thing. You don't have to do the $100 thing. We know that people have different amounts. There's no judgment. Just give something.
And
4 quarters.
It really kind of occurs to me that this is a wonderful thing, not just for Thanksgiving, because it's a great thing to show somebody you love that you're grateful for them, you're thankful for them, by saying, I choose so-and-so to draw so-and-so. So you can do it as sort of a Thanksgiving tribute, and you can also do it for Christmas. You're making a donation in honor of somebody for Christmas.
Absolutely.
Because let's face it, don't we have enough ties and slippers and stuff we don't need?
Absolutely. And when I tell you, there's something about it when you stand there and say, I'm about to do this in honor of. It like gives me chills even now thinking about that. It felt so good to do that, and it felt so good to challenge other people to also do that. And now that we've been doing it internally, and we have hundreds of videos now ready for you guys to see on Monday. And what's amazing about it is to hear, and you only use first names, right? Because we're being kind, and not everybody wants the world to know what's going on with them. So people saying, I'm doing this for Bob, or I'm doing this for Judy, or I'm doing this for Katarina. When you hear the names, it has an impact. And as the world hears these names, it will remind them that this is a big, beautiful spectrum, and that there are people on this spectrum that are loved and cared for. And when I showed it to my son, and he was like, you did that for me, it meant something to him. So take the challenge. We're going to take a break now and show you 2 amazing people who took the challenge that you might recognize. And when we come back, I'm going to feed Nancy something really remarkable, our recipe that's on the blog. So take a look. These are 2 examples you're seeing. This is the first time anybody's seeing them. We're unveiling them now. And by the way, we're doing a whole week next week about this. So take a look at these people taking the Autism Act of Love Challenge.
I'm Larry Thomas, and I'm taking the Autism Act of Love Challenge. I am doing this in honor of Jem Miller, and I am going to draw a picture blindfolded. Now this, to you, may seem like it's really difficult, but it'll probably be the same way I could draw unblindfolded because I'm a terrible artist. So I'm going to draw a picture of something I love, which, since I'm doing this in honor of my friend's son, I'm going to do this, a picture of my son. And he is an artist, so I hope he doesn't get terribly insulted by how bad this is going to be. So I've chosen 3 colors, but I don't know exactly which color I'm going to be drawing with, so let's see. Fun, fun, fun. Okay, let's go with this one. I really don't know where I am. Okay, so a person has a head, and here's the fun part. When I go to another color, I gotta know where I was. So got a little hair. He's recently cut his hair, so it's shorter. Right, and let's get in there somewhere for like a nose, couple of eyes, and let's do, we have the same eyebrows, so I've cursed my poor son with the big Thomas eyebrows, so we'll do that. Sometimes he has a little hair on his face and looks like me. And let's see if we can get one more color here and draw something like a mouth. That's probably about as far as I could go because I have no idea where the circle is now. So how is that for a portrait? Are we cool? Let's look and see what we've done. Yikes! Well, I kind of have a face there, but it's not in the head. So I think it's very Picasso-esque. You know, I did this intentionally. And so I must challenge 3 people to take this challenge as well. I have to challenge my son, Ben Thomas, because he's the subject and he's the artist in the family. And I want to challenge some people that are very close to Jim and Shannon, his parents. So Alan and Rana Wasserman, you are challenged. And I'm going to consider them one person because they're ridiculously close. Tony Laveri, because he's another friend of the Millers, and he also is an excellent artist. So we'll see what he can do. So thank you very much, and please donate. You must donate to helpforautism.org. Please. And of course, if you don't take this challenge, no soup for you! That was an imitation of the soup Nazi.
Welcome back. So I told you were going to see 2 celebrities, but we're going to save the one for next week because we're running out of time. But that was the soup Nazi, Larry Thomas, who took the Act of Love Challenge for us. What we have here, I just want to pause for a second because we have a recipe that is on the blog right now that is the healthiest meatballs you can eat. And we've upped our game by taking pasta that doesn't have all the carbs. It's gluten-free. It's organic. It's made with edamame. This is Explore Asian. I've mentioned I am so in love with this stuff right now. It's amazing. Really healthy, upping the protein. So we've got the recipe for the meatballs, and really it's only a couple of ingredients because it's turkey and spinach. So there's no eggs, there's no kind of filler at all in the meatballs. It's just spinach and garlic and a little bit of olive oil. And so Nancy is spooning that on to the edamame pasta. And I don't have it very hot, so the poor thing is going to be eating relatively cold. But give her a taste test and see. And I know I made these meatballs for you a couple of weeks ago.
And Wyatt was like filching them out, is that the word? Out of the refrigerator.
It's the word.
He kept going into the refrigerator, like opening the container. And sorry, I'm not very good at twirling the pasta.
Well, and it would help if I had heated it up a little bit more.
You know what? Even cold.
Man, good stuff, huh? Can I tell you that in my bag here, I'm showing, and you notice that the bag is doing a little bit of a number because it's got green on it. So on our green screen, it kind of goes away. But you can't. Can you see that it's open? Because I had 2 bags of this, one to take the pictures and make the sample of, and my child ate it all. He absolutely loved this edamame
I'm telling you, this pasta
It's incredible, isn't it?
It just tastes like great pasta. I don't care what it's from.
Well,
I can't believe it's from edamame.
But the protein level is so much higher than a typical pasta that it's really pretty remarkable. And so you know that you're giving your child something healthy, but they also love it. What I also love about it is the texture of it, because a lot of times when you cook gluten-free pasta, it falls
gooey.
apart and it gets gooey.
It gets gummy.
It gets gummy. And this
is not gummy.
This gets
it's very separate,
al dente, and you rinse it off. And it only takes, this particular one takes 4 minutes to cook. So it's super duper fast. Some boiling water, 4 minutes. You rinse it off, and it's separate. It holds its form, and it's fabulous. It tastes great.
It really does.
So this recipe for the edamame spaghetti, which is the Explore Asian, and the turkey meatballs that are with spinach. My husband is the worst in terms of eating a vegetable, and I make these now for him. And at first he had no idea. He said, "What did you do to these meatballs? They taste so good."
Right.
And I said, "It's spinach." And I thought then he would be all funny about it. My husband, not my kid. My kid will eat spinach, but my husband loves these, and he says, "What a great way!" It's that sneaking the vegetable
Sneaking it in, and you don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, you truly
and they're super duper easy to make. The recipe is all on the blog, but you got to try. And if for some reason you're not doing soy, they have so many other varieties of this pasta. Next month, you've given me a recipe to do, because they have a mung bean fettuccine. And can I just tell you, I love this, but the mung bean fettuccine is my favorite. I absolutely love it. It's a thicker noodle, and it's a little weighty. The kids love it.
Yeah.
And you gave me a recipe that I can't wait to try.
Okay, is it Wyatt's pasta, the way I do that one?
It's the one with the prosciutto and the Brussels sprouts that are chopped up?
Yeah.
Oh,
so good.
You guys, I cannot wait.
I mean, it's a favorite at my house.
Yeah, so anyway, try these pastas out. Now, Kelby, do we have any time left? I don't have. I'm sorry? We have 6 minutes left. Okay, so then can we show the other Autism Active Love? I'd love to show the other Autism. Okay, so we're going to see Daniel Baldwin, who was so sweet. He was so sweet to take this challenge for us.
Yeah, father of Atticus Baldwin.
Yes.
Who was on the spectrum.
And he did this for us at Denim and Diamonds, and I'm a huge new fan. I didn't know Daniel that well, but what a sweetheart he is. Nancy's going to eat. But take a look. This is Daniel Baldwin taking the challenge.
Hi, I'm Daniel Baldwin. I'm taking the Autism Active Love Challenge in support of my son, Atticus. Now I will draw something I love with my eyes closed. Now I will draw something that I love with my eyes closed. Hey, Atticus, guess what? And now I will draw something I love with my eyes closed. And now I will play the trumpet. Hang on. Fourth color, cheating. All right, that was close enough. Help us raise the money so they may grow.
He was so wonderful, and we sped that up a little bit because he took some time. He did a really elaborate drawing, and you guys don't have to do an elaborate. I did not do an elaborate drawing of Bono, but it was so sweet. And as he started it, he was just getting warmed up, and then his son came to watch, and then it was just so. And I love the fact that when Kelby edited, he left in some of the things that he said, Atticus, I'm going to do this, and you get to see the father getting the smile from his son,
Right.
which is just adorable.
Yeah,
and
you know,
it's
a lot of people weren't aware of the fact that Daniel Baldwin has a son with autism, and we did kind of reveal that to the world at Denim and Diamonds, and which means that Billy Baldwin, who was there, Stephen Baldwin, who couldn't make it but was scheduled to be there, but he last minute couldn't come in, and Alec Baldwin, who was in Europe, all have a nephew with autism, and this kind of was not really known before. So there were some really tender moments that night.
Yeah.
Billy Baldwin and Daniel got on stage and were introduced as the acting dynasty of the Baldwin brothers, and then they said, we have a new thespian in our family, and Atticus came out and did a little bit from his part in the Miracle Project that he did this last summer. He played the evil genius.
And he was brilliant, can I just say.
He is so brilliant, hilarious. That boy cracks me up.
Yeah, he was truly wonderful. I mean, we had no idea who he was related to, and we came to see the show.
And his mother's a very well-known actress, Isabella Hoffman.
And she's agreed to come on the show. And we had no idea who any of the kids were. We came to see Wyatt in the show.
Right.
But we kept talking about the one kid who played the one role.
Right.
And there were a couple of different kids that we talked about how brilliant a singer one was, and how another one did this, and it was just kind of amazing. And Wyatt did such a good job, but we kept talking about the acting of this one young man.
Yes.
And we, as a family, were particularly interested to find out that his name was Atticus, because my son is named Jem.
From To Kill a
And
Mockingbird.
these are both from To Kill a Mockingbird, so we were like, you know, isn't that amazing?
Right.
And
there were two Atticuses
in the show. And it wasn't until weeks later that you said, you do know who his father is and who his uncles are. And I went, well, there's the acting gene
Exactly.
for you. But really remarkable. So
Which, by the way, the boy who opened up the show, the young man, Dominic, well, we found out where the singing genes were from. Great uncle, Marvin Gaye.
There you go. So it is interesting how these things pass down despite autism. So in any case, all of next week on the show, Tuesday and Wednesday in particular, we're going to be doing a pledge-a-thon. And we're going to be featuring more of these wonderful celebrities taking the Autism Act of Love
and
Challenge.
Some people are going to be joining us here in the studio to talk about it and do it.
And we're also going to have some people in the studio who have benefited from grants that have come from these kinds of donations, and that's a really remarkable thing.
Right.
So we want you to participate. We hope that you will. It's got so many different aspects to it that if we can really show the world that we can all make a difference together. So I hope you'll participate. Autism Act of Love, starting on Monday.
Yeah.
So start posting. Take your videos and post them for Monday.
Take videos, post them. Yeah, help us launch it. And you know, it's an easy. You don't have to get wet. You don't have to get freezing.
That's right.
You just have to get a little creative.
That's it. And it's fun. You'll see. Everybody does this. That's so much fun. I want to do that again.
I know.
Okay, just a little programming note that tomorrow on the show we have Dr. Adele Nadowski. She's going to be talking with us about teaching adaptive skills. And then Dr. Jonathan Tarbox is going to be with us answering some of the questions that we didn't get to today and the ones that you send in tomorrow. We only got through like half of the questions today. You guys did a good job. And I'm going to do a good job to see that we can get those. But we're out of time, so we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
For lunch
and you're going to eat. And so give your kiddos a hug.
You have some?
I'm going to have some. Are you kidding me? Yes.
All right.
So bye-bye for now.
Give yourselves a hug from me.